Hey guys, welcome back to the next episode of our podcast, Let's Be Open. We're going to do a little kind of off-the-cuff one today because Chloe and I had some really good conversations last night talking about a few cool topics. We thought we'd discuss that. So it come about, Chloe has an old, what even is it, a diary? Journal from years ago. And quite a lot of like self-help stuff in it. So there's like your little vision for the next 5 years, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And then there's some... Chloe had anorexia obviously years ago, and this is a little diary which has like some kind of things that Chloe was doing to try and get out of the anorexia, and some of it was really interesting to discuss. So we're going to talk about a few things that were in this.
Mainly to do with beauty standards. That's kind of the thing we're going to talk about today, but then go off topic of things to do with that.
Well, let's talk about that one that was really quite like eye-opening for me to think about, which was the one where you have those you describe it, you have that cellulite and
so when we were talking last night, and maybe some of you think that the beauty standards are for women are for men, so we need to look a certain way for men, but I actually think that's partially true, and it is, if we go into more depth, partially the beauty and standards are created by men if you go down the chain, but actually, a lot of it for me, and I think a lot of women, it doesn't actually come from we want to look a certain way to get a boyfriend or have male attention. It actually comes from the pressure of the media and now social media as well. So when I was growing up, I used to read magazines because we didn't really have like Instagram and Facebook back then. And I know a lot of people read magazines, and even in the newspapers that they do this. So they get like Closer magazine, Heat magazine, they get celebrities, female celebrities. They may get one male every so often, but it's mainly female. And an example would be Jennifer Aniston on the beach on holiday, just sunbathing, and they'll take a picture of her and then they draw arrows onto her body pointing all the bad things out, like cellulite, saggy boobs, wrinkle, hair not nice, bags under the eyes. And like there was Molly May as well after Love Island, she had like all of this stuff about her body. And then me growing up, say I'm 10 years old and I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh, so that means cellulite is bad, can't have wrinkles, can't have saggy boobs, can't have that. So that means I must not look like that because that is bad. And that's what you take in growing up as a teenager. Yeah. And you see what is idolised, and idolised is flawless skin, no cellulite, perfect body. So then you think, I need to be like that to fit in. That's what is admired in society, and that's what you're taught. And even worse now with Instagram, I only discovered a couple of days ago, there's a page that has got thousands of followers, and they only do it to women, and they've got female, even like, is it Margot Robbie, is that her name? Even her, and she's so like beautiful naturally. They've got her, and then they photoshopped her face, done flawless skin, changed the colour of her eyes, made her lips like bigger, changed the shape of her mouth, and gone like, basically saying the right one is better to all of these celebrities. And imagine if you are that celebrity and you see yourself, like people saying, oh, you would look better if you're photoshopped, like this is how you should look.
Yeah, it's very strange because as human beings, if you look at us for what we are supposed to be, we're just supposed to all be different with all these different things about us. Like there's nothing bad about any of those things that are different from you to me. I love that there's, I said to you last night, there's Alan Watts has a really good description of beauty, and he's like, it would be like saying that a wave is ugly, because waves come in all different shapes and sizes, and you never criticize a wave and say, oh, that wave looks so fucking ugly over there, would you? And you're basically doing that with humans, which are exactly the same as waves. We're just natural beings that don't have a specific way that we need to look. But there you are, the media and whoever else, even ourselves now, creating this image of what's right and what's wrong, and then trying to live up to it. But it's like, we're natural beings, there's nothing that we need.
And then you've got to think
like.
about why do these companies have it? And then it comes down to the economy and making money. I mean, if the industry says you must not have cellulite, then all of these anti-cellulite products can make loads of money. Or if you've got to have like a big bum, then all of these companies that help you have a big bum will make money. Plastic surgeons, all of these, gyms and all these companies. So that all comes down to the economy and making money. I mean, that is what beauty standards are for. Because like you said, we don't go on a walk and go, oh my God, look at that tree. Like, it's so weird. It's got a branch there. It's so ugly. Like, it's not accepted in the tree society. But we do that to our bodies.
Yeah, so this is where inequality is something that's really important that we don't have. So the problem with inequality and money going into the hands of the few is that companies and businesses have to do different practices in order to earn their money. So it may be, for example, the Sun newspaper isn't earning quite as much money. At the moment, they're doing moral thing. They're doing morally good things. But then the money is being stripped out of the economy and it's going into the hands of the rich, for example. And then they're thinking, how can we make more money? I know we have to do things that aren't necessarily good business practices. They're not good for humans to focus on these sorts of things, but it will earn us money. So if you have those photos of Jennifer Aniston with a cellulite or whatever, this sort of stuff may get views for the wrong sort of reasons, not because women want to look at it because it's positive, but they click on it because it's just triggering or worrying for them. So therefore they click on it. So the Sun are having to go into more and more dark kind of ideas and putting up dark stories in order to get the business. Mm-hmm. And that's propagating the same problem, which is creating those insecurities in people, which is then creating the world to be more egotistical and more focused on those things. So then more money has to go back into those things. So it's just a downward spiral of bad things happening, where that could start potentially with money being not equal enough, because if everyone's got enough money, they don't have to focus on those negative things in order to earn themselves income. So it's really important that we have equality, roughly speaking, across the globe.
Yeah, so true. And it's so interesting how, also in different countries, there's different beauty standards. So the West is different to the East. Like in Japan, their beauty standards are totally different. But again, it makes the money out there. It's, to be different from the beauty standard, say in Japan, which would be to be muscly as a woman, it's just, you can't, you almost can't be it. It would just not accept, just like here, if you're not, the beauty standard in the West is more idolised. It's getting better, but it is on the slim white person. You could say that there's positives of the media and the freedom of media, aka what we were talking about with the news, that 20 years ago we only had the news and we only had magazines, so those people at the top could only decide what went in them. Now we've got Instagram, we can also control the media. So with social media, there are more accounts of women saying, look, and there's a lot of girls doing it now, saying, look, you can have cellulite and rolls and it's okay. When you bend over, your body does have rolls, because we're used to seeing you can't have any rolls or you can't have any fat on your body, it's bad. And girls are showing it's okay, it's okay to be bloated and it's normal.
Yeah,
which is a good thing.
So that's single to many media or many to many media, and it shows the difference between the two. Because back in the day, and even with things like war now, you've got the single to many media of the times before, where it was they just talk about the war and who should we bomb next? Do we need to get involved? All of this sort of stuff. There was no love and compassion and kind of wanting to help those sorts of people. My memory of the Iraq war was just that. It was just us getting involved and the media trying to hype it up almost.
Yeah, and just watching it on the news.
Yeah, but now we have all of us talking about it, and you see on TikTok all the time, us expressing to all our other fellow humans that this is terrible, we don't want this. So
our opinion as well.
Yeah, and it's so good. So having that sort of communication is so good. The flip side of that is that we now have these complex algorithms in place and misinformation.
Censoring.
Yeah, that try and still create the whatever it is, the dopamine fix, or try and create the things that are interesting to us. And humans don't necessarily have good control over viewing the things that we should be viewing. Yeah, so we get pulled into things just because they're interesting, or they turn us on with certain hormones and stuff like that, which is not a good thing.
Yeah.
So you have to be mindful of that, which is where self-discipline comes into place for all of these things, for women with these kind of insecurities in their body, and men, of course, and men not buying into the industry, women not buying into the industry. And do we have the self-discipline to not buy into those things?
Yeah, exactly, because you could just unfollow all fitness accounts, all body accounts on Instagram. You could follow, NASA, you could follow NASA, the National Geographic, you could follow David Attenborough, some cat pages, some dog pages, some tree pages, and see no humans on your Instagram if you wanted. Because the good thing with the algorithm is it does move it to what you look at. And I remember ages ago, I think I told you I was looking at baked oats all the time, so then all I saw was baked oats, which was great actually, because I was just seeing food, I wasn't seeing people's bodies. But from now, a lot of it I see as the fitness industry and a lot of fitness people, and you do go on it and think, look at her body or whatever, and you think and then you see they've got 2 million followers, and you're well, you've got to look that way if you want to have 2 million followers.
Yeah. and then think, oh, maybe I should put some photos up like that.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you do get the benefit off the back of it of putting a photo up of your bum.
Yeah.
You get those extra likes for putting it up. So there is like a sort of reason from your insecurity it kind of comes from. But there is a reason for you to think, oh, maybe I'll do that because I'll get some likes for that thing. But then you're again buying into that. So you have to have the discipline to not care about the likes and put stuff up that is just fulfilling or putting good into the world. Because I don't think... And before, in my younger years, I thought there was no problems with those sorts of things. But I've come to realise that there is like really big problems with acting in such ways. So it's like we should be taking our mind off like looks, because it just creates insecurity and, ego. It creates ego in the world, which is really sad.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to add with the beauty standard thing, going back to what we were saying, like literally just before about... the making the money, which is the same sort of thing, is the diet industry. So when I was explaining to Tris about the magazines and stuff, there's also the pressure from the diet industry, which a lot of it is aimed more at women as well. And it is, eat this and you'll look like this. And that's like everywhere. That was in the magazines. The ones I used to read when I was little had... I'm not little, but like a teenager. They had like day in the life of like this health expert, and they show all of their food. And then you'd be like, I used to actually rip that out and be like, well, I better eat like this because then I'll look like this celebrity. Like Davina McCall back then was like the fitness girl, whatever. And you'd think, oh, okay, I'll eat this food and then I'll look like her. So it's like telling you what to eat. And then the other thing is that, which is what happened to me, is you lose how to intuitively eat. And as a child, children are amazing intuitive eaters. You see them, sometimes they don't eat like much all day. But then the next day they eat loads because they're just naturally more hungry. And a lot of women, I work mainly with women, and it's so scary to see how bad women are at intuitively eating because they've been just dieting so much. And it's like saying, don't eat after 8 o'clock or eat this many calories at this time and then eat these foods. And
it's doing the exact opposite of what it should be doing. It's creating no intuition with food. You're following like a set plan maybe, and because you're trying to stick so religiously to a set plan that wasn't even created for you, you think it's going to make you better and more healthy, but actually it's not. And even if it makes you more, towards your beauty standard goals in the short term, long term, it could be wreaking havoc with your intuition
and your mental health. Which is like, and that's the worst with those like cookie cutter plans that you can buy on the internet, like that a lot of people do. They follow it, and I did it, which actually was when I was having my eating disorder. I'd follow these plans that I just found on the internet, like that are made for someone else, like you said, or that what's her name, that huge girl, Kayla Itness, what's her name?
Huge girl?
No, like she's really like so big. She did massive in the fitness. Is it Kayla Fitness or Kyla? If you're listening, you'll probably, some of you will know who I mean. But she made that, and there were so many reports about how bad it was because it was so low calorie. But loads of people would follow it, and like it's not made for them at all. But that all comes down to money. So again, the diet industry has to create a beauty standard. So even like a supplement company will do well off the fact that we've created an industry where you have to look a certain way, because it will say this product gives you clear skin, this product gives you nice nails, this product gives you nice hair, and those are only make money off the back of the beauty standard. Because if we didn't care about nails, hair and skin looking a certain way, and we were more accepting of acne or whatever it might be, and not so like you have to have poreless skin, then people wouldn't be obsessed with buying these products. So the diet industry, which is a multi-million-pound industry, would just fall apart. Like, think of all the companies that would go out of business if we loved our bodies and were more accepting and not constantly trying to change them and fit these standards.
Yeah.
And a lot of those companies, unfortunately, are owned by men who may not understand. Like, you didn't understand the damage that causes. And then they haven't got women saying that this actually isn't a good thing to do.
Yeah. Can we just quickly go back to... I'll talk about that in a second, because I think there's some really good points there. But before we get too far away from it, I just want to talk about that at the beginning, that, that you seeing in the magazines Jennifer Aniston with the cellulite and the arrows towards her. This is where, as a man, I know that those things exist, but I don't look at them, I don't focus on them, so therefore I don't see that they're a problem. So this is something that when Chloe was explaining it to me in that explicit detail, it sounds like, whoa, that's terrible. If I saw that sort of thing and I was focused on those sorts of things growing up, and it was men, which is, it's not too much, I can see how that would be, that's a terrible thing. And I'd never seen it like that before. But it's just interesting that as a man, those things don't come up for me. I don't see those things. maybe even if they did, they don't trigger me because I am a man for some reason. So there's differences between men and women. Men do seek beauty generally. Women do seek security generally. So there is differences between men and women, which is maybe why these issues have been created for women. Obviously, men have issues of their own.
Yeah.
But it's just quite an interesting one that we ended up talking about how men being in control of the world. You know, if most men are in positions of power, but they don't understand the perspectives of these things, because I had no clue about that and how bad it could be, because I'd never had a conversation that had made me focus on those issues enough. So this is where positions of power, we shouldn't necessarily force them to be 50-50 men and women, but when we're talking about, you know, there's 50% women in the world, they need to be their opinions need to be taken into account just as much as men's. Otherwise you get a warped world where certain groups of people are treated unfairly.
Yeah.
But it's just amazing to, you know, some people are kind of quick to judge maybe the way that men think, but it's not because they're avoiding focusing on issues that aren't concerned with them. It's because we're so in our own world and our own perspective that we just fail to see them. So I wasn't purposely avoiding looking at the pictures of Jennifer Aniston and trying to work out, I wasn't avoiding them because I thought it was not a problem or whatever. I just never saw it. I didn't even see it.
And I remember actually the beginning of that conversation, before I explained that to you, your point was you thought the beauty standard was actually good because you were saying that it's like keeps you a healthy weight. You're like, why is it bad that it's slim though? Because that's healthy. Like, there's better than being too thin or too fat. Like, that's good. And then I explained, it is fine to be like it should be that you're just a healthy weight for you. But the problem is that you've got all those other things that come with it, like the pointing out of the magazines and the stuff on Instagram and all those other things that come with it. And then that made you realise, that's not a great way to get a society to be healthy. That's like the worst thing. It creates more eating problems. And actually, I even wonder if, not obviously the only reason, but a lot of people are obese and overweight, and we have an obesity problem because of eating disorders. I think that a lot of obesity is disordered eating. And like a lot of my clients who are very overweight, I would say have disordered eating, like problems, real bad emotional eating problems. There was something in here actually that I'd written down about that people, that people they watch TV and eat loads at the same time because it takes their mind off their problems. And I think that's a lot of what overweight people do, is they maybe have lots of anxiety and problem, and then they'll sit and watch TV and eat loads of food because they think it makes them feel better, and then all the guilt comes and they feel shit, and then they're like, fuck it, I'm just going to eat more. So a lot of it's actually mental and emotional problems. Yeah,
so the guilt comes afterwards.
Yeah.
So there's an unconsciousness about watching TV and eating at the same time.
Yeah, and a lot of it is emotional eating. Like most of the clients I've had who, when they say go off track on their diet, it's normally coming from an emotional stress point. Like, I was feeling really shit, so I just had a bag of chocolate buttons. And it's like, that to me is a disordered problem. Which you could say is created by the beauty standards, I don't know, but like I think it is also for the overweight people trying, have the mental issues as well.
Yeah, I can see how there's a kind of epidemic of disordered eating and body dysmorphia from having all of these things shoved down your face so much. And I guess those problems, they're less problematic within men, which they definitely are less problematic within men. There's nowhere near the amount of anorexia.
Yeah.
I think there's probably even more obesity in women. I don't think there's quite as much as men. But maybe that's because men aren't focusing on those things because it's not
shoved in their face.
Not in the media, yeah.
And there is also, I know we said it's not all that, but there is the beauty standard for men as well, as in women need to look a certain way for men. There is also that as well, that you see... you're kind of taught growing up that maybe you'll be, and this is all just through movies, TV programs, that the successful, slim, beautiful girl will get more male attention, and you see that in films and stuff. And even there's films where you see the fatter girl doesn't get the attention and is bullied and stuff, and so you think, I better look like that because I'll be more accepted by men, and more men will like me if I'm that. And it's such an important thing for women, like, to be accepted by men as well.
It's a funny one because it is a harsh reality as well. Like, there are very good reasons why men go for slim girls with, say, big boobs and bum, for example, from an evolution point of view. There's a good I remember a lot of podcasts that talk about it. There's reasons for those things because those women are likely to produce you
More
really
babies,
healthy
yeah.
offspring and stuff like that. So unfortunately, that is something that's there, and it's not necessarily a fault of man, but men are attracted to those things. So women, it will be more, chosen if they have those things. But the flip side of that is that I think that men who understand that should not try and prioritize those things, because those sorts of things are superficial, egotistical things that if you can try and turn your attention away from them, you'll solve problems in the world. By putting beauty on a pedestal, and all men putting beauty on a pedestal, it creates the need for women to be beautiful,
Yeah.
which creates all these problems within the media, which creates the bad diet and the disordered eating, and it's a terrible thing. So even though I, as a man, want to and am attracted to certain bodies and looks within women, I should try my hardest not to put it on a pedestal.
Yeah.
So if I see a beautiful girl, it's within my best interest to dismiss the beauty almost, to not put it on a pedestal.
And just put the personality.
And put the personality on a pedestal instead. Far, far better thing to be doing. And you would create a lot of, if all men could attempt to do that, and believe me, it's difficult to do, it would be very, very useful for the way that the world operates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you go back to the root of that then, so you were saying that unfortunately the overweight women maybe aren't as desired by men because of evolution reasons. But then you ask the question, why are women overweight in the first place? And then you could say, is that created from the beauty industry, beauty standards? And it made me think of my eating disorder. One of the reasons I started the diet was because of the beauty standard and led me to anorexia. So women are constantly in their heads, like 24/7, trying to look a certain way for the men. And actually that causes them to actually, I know it sounds weird, but overeat and undereat because they can't get in touch with their body and they lose the intuitive eating, and it causes them to be bigger or underweight. And then they end up ironically not looking like the beauty standard, and they look worse because they're trying so hard to be something. And I think I wrote that in here, like that you'll miss out on your life because you're trying so hard to be this perfect weight. And actually, if you let it all go and you let all the pressures go, and you just ate intuitively and listened to your body, like really got in tune with your body, you'd probably end up looking good anyway. So then you've got, let's just say there were no beauty standards, there was no diet industry, we didn't, all Instagram was trees and flowers and animals, and we never looked at people's bodies. Maybe women would actually start looking better. Maybe we'd all be like, actually become the beauty standard. We'd look slim.
You'd
look good because 100%. You wouldn't be focusing so hard to be something.
You'd be intuitive.
Yeah.
And off the back of that, you wouldn't be bouncing through fad diets, and you end up your set weight, which likely would be closer to the beauty standard than it currently is in the world.
And I know of clients of mine who have sat there and ate bags of crisps and cereal and toast and pizza all in one serving when they're not hungry, because they've got such a bad addiction or emotional eating, and they can't regulate their eating. And if that one person just ate intuitively, they would ironically end up losing that weight, even though they're trying so hard to do it.
Yeah. That's funny because that stems from the opinions of other people. So you are looking at the beauty standard, you're thinking, what do other people think of me? Because of this magazine, it's important what other people think of me, therefore I'm going to eat a certain way. So that as well is a good thing to understand, that doing things for the opinions of other people creates more problems than it solves. And that's such a good example of it. If you didn't care what other people thought of you, you wouldn't give a fuck about looking a certain way. So therefore you'd eat the food that you naturally want to eat, not caring what you're going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And chances are, especially if you don't have any trauma, you're not going to be binge eating anyway.
Yeah.
So you'd end up looking much more like the beauty standard, just caring about your own opinion. So putting other people's opinions, caring about other people's opinions is just a terrible thing to be doing. Really bad. And
I've noticed myself doing it, when you said then, when I've seen, say, a photo and I've seen cellulite, and then I immediately think, oh no, there's cellulite, oh, it's so bad and I need to get rid of it. And it's where has that come from? Who has told me that cellulite is bad? Because if I was a baby, and actually that Mel Robbins, we listened to that podcast, she said that when you look at a 3-year-old in front of a mirror, they are obsessed, they're touching the mirror and they're smiling, and they're really young kids take photos of themselves. They're really obsessed with they love how they look. They're looking in the mirror oh, it looks so good. And then when you're an adult, you rarely look in the mirror and go, oh wow, look at me, I'm amazing, cool, I look so cool. Because all of that conditioning, it's oh no, that's there, that society has told me shouldn't be there, like a wrinkle, or there's like me, there was the cellulite. Oh, who's told me that's bad? Well, media's told me it's bad, therefore I then want to get rid of it. Then I might buy this pill or drink that says, oh yeah, if you drink this drink you'll get rid of your cellulite, and it's like a laxative or something. It's so bad for you. And then you're not being intuitive.
Yeah. And also how you even lose grasp of what you think is attractive in the world when you're caring about other people's opinions, and all this this media encourages you to think that a beauty standard is the way that you want to look. So I, for years, have thought, why do I think that, like, muscly girls with big bums and boobs, why are they attractive to me? Is that what I genuinely think is attractive? Or is that because it's what I see all the time?
Social conditioning as well.
And you have to come to the conclusion that it's social conditioning because you see all of those things all of the time.
In porn as well.
In porn as well. And those sorts of things, for some reason, happen to be the things that I like. And, you know, those things go with the times as well, don't they? Like 20 years ago, the beauty standard was different and people were trying to get for that. How come it's changed? Have men all of a sudden just decided that they fancy different things? No, they haven't. It's because you're seeing those things all the time and you're realising that's what I want to look like. Why? Because other people want to look like that. It's not actually what I want to look like.
Yeah.
So actually knowing what you're even turned on by is actually... there's a massive interpretation of other people there. Like,
and as a woman, like, we're told, like, a man over 6 foot and muscly, that's our kind of beauty standard to look for men. And maybe that is what, in films we see, like, for you, that you'd see the men that's tall and handsome and really successful gets the hot girl. So then you as a child might think, oh, I better be tall and handsome and muscly because that's what does well in life. And that is what a lot of men actually...
Yeah, and men, it's very similar with men, that there is a standard. Like, men that are over 6 foot tall is a great one.
Yeah.
Like, you are so much more likely to do better with attractive girls if you're over 6 foot tall. Like, that's a fucking
And if you're
fact.
short, like, if you're short and a man, like, it's so difficult for you because of the beauty standard. But if there was no beauty standard, those short men probably would be fine.
Yeah. So there's a standard there. And again, there's also an evolutionary reason why women want to go for tall men. Yeah. So you can't negate that. Women should be doing the same as men. They should be trying to take their mind off things like height and saying, this is bullshit, I'm going to look for something deeper. Even though there is an inherent evolutionary reason that women are going for those things.
And we don't need those evolution things now. Like, women have realised that they can live on their own and be independent, so we don't need to go for a strong man. Like,
I don't need a girl with big hips that's going to bear me a good child. Like, the hospital's going to bang that child out, 9 times out of 10 pretty healthy, regardless of the size of your hips. Yeah. So it doesn't make a blind bit of difference.
Yeah, it's so true.
There's also I feel like with these sorts of things, when the times are bad and the Sun newspaper are having to bounce out shoddy, stories in order to gain more views, and that might be pictures of Jennifer Aniston's arse with her cellulite or whatever. I feel like we all, especially if we're running companies, but we all, even expressing our ideas to the world, have a moral obligation to not create and buy into these negative things. So if you're you're co-running the Sun newspaper and you're not earning that much money, it's better for the company to flop. It's better that you lose the job than you start focusing on girls' fucking cellulite. So I'm sure there's women, that work in the Sun that do promote those stories, and then they may lose their job if they don't get the hits or whatever. Sometimes you have to stand up for your principles and go, no, I'm not doing it. That is bad to society. That's going to create a knock-on effect of really downward spiraling things that happen within humans, focusing on the ego, focusing on materialism, having these pointless beauty standards and more companies which put filler in your lips and your ass. Like, they're bad, they're toxic. So we have a moral obligation to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick with my principles and I'm not going to promote this sort of shit.
Another one, though, is also just, I would obviously let you finish, but just on top of the magazines, is also not to follow those pages. So that page where it's got the photoshopped women has got over 100,000 followers. So who are those people? Why are you following and supporting a page like that?
Yeah.
Like, that's not good.
And what sort of people do follow those things? Because I was thinking that last night when you were telling me about the Jennifer Aniston cellulite. I was thinking, who does open that and it's like, oh, this is so interesting, and like showing their mates, oh, look at this, Jennifer Aniston's got a bit of cellulite.
I've thought about, like, I was thinking about that. I think that, and maybe like, again, it's maybe as a woman, when you look at Jennifer Aniston and she's got cellulite and whatever, it can also make people feel more normal. So they can see, but unfortunately the way it's done is it's saying she's bad, but it would be better if the spread said, hey, look, it's okay to have cellulite. Jennifer Aniston has it too. But it doesn't say that, it says that it's bad. But there may be people who look at it and go, you said who reads it? Maybe they open it and go, oh yeah, Kim Kardashian isn't that hot anyway, look at her, she looks like a pile of shit there. I'm actually quite good looking compared to her.
Yeah, so...
And I think those people follow those Instagram pages as well. And it is that actually, because I get it on my Instagram and YouTube, and I know more successful girls who are very stunning, like, not saying I'm stunning, but I just know there's hot girls that get really horrible, like, people will try and pick at them like Molly May, oh look, you've got a bit of cellulite, and I think it makes them feel better, like they're bringing down a beautiful woman and saying, you look shit too, you're just as shit as us. And I think that's what those people maybe do, and when they read the magazine they're like, hey, Jennifer Aniston's actually not that hot, she looks as shit as us.
Well, that's where the focusing on the beauty and focusing on the things that everyone is considering ugliness are things that both need to be avoided. So you can't avoid one without having to avoid the other. So to solve this problem, it wouldn't be a good idea if we're focusing on, Jennifer Aniston with her cellulite in a good way because, oh, I've got that as well kind of thing. You need to be not focusing on this sort of beauty at all. Just don't focus on beauty. Like, that's the only way to completely eradicate it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so true.
Yeah, really, really cool.
And that actually, we wrote down leads us on quite well to OnlyFans, because we were going to bring that up as well, because it's kind of the same thing to do with media, about when Tris was saying a minute ago we shouldn't be buying into these things. It's the same with like OnlyFans, because with OnlyFans, as if you say I did OnlyFans, I am putting out to the world that to be kind of accepted by men or get that attention, you need to be like showing your ass and being half naked and like looking a certain way. And also by taking part in that industry, I am actually creating the beauty standard, because I'm making more men desire that. And then they're buying my OnlyFans and getting more into that. And then it means that they've seen my bum and whatever, and they're like, ooh, it looks so good that she's got this big bum. And then they go away thinking like, that's what's hot, or that's what should be accepted.
They're more focused on those things.
Yeah.
They're focusing more on the attractive girls. They're maybe slagging off the girls that don't have those things so much. They're buying straight back into that industry. Yeah, terrible thing. And on top of that, you've got the fact that girls have that easy way because they know men focus on those sorts of things easily. So they think, oh, I can make a fast buck. The world's getting harder.
I need money.
Money's going into the hands of the rich. Thinking, how can I make a fast buck? I know, I'll buy into this. There's nothing wrong with it. That's always the thing that you say. Oh, there's nothing wrong with it. Oh yeah, I'm empowering myself, taking photos of my ass. It's like, no, actually, that's a very negative thing that you're doing. You're buying into that industry. You're unsettling men's minds, turning men on more. Men are then watching more porn, wanting more of those things, wanting nudity more. Women are then having to increase, get closer to that beauty standard. They're getting more insecure. It's like, that's absolutely terrible, toxic thing.
And it's like,
thing
there's women that say, oh, it's so annoying when like men look at your boobs when you're talking to them, or they look at your ass when you're walking down the street. And it's like, that very same girl, because I know people who do it, then also have OnlyFans, and you're like, but you're selling that stuff for them. You're making them desire you. Then you're making them desire those things. So then when you walk out and have big boobs showing, of course a man's going to look at it, because you've been on your Instagram or OnlyFans, whatever, showing it, or even Instagram as well.
Yeah, this is why I think the hippie kind of girls have got a good point. The girls that don't bother shaving their armpits and don't bother dressing up nice. It's like, at least you're not caring for other people's opinions. So you're not trying to buy into any sort of standard at all. You're doing whatever you want. You're doing things for the sake of ease. Girls have to go through a lot of they shave and they get their hair done and they get their lashes done and stuff like this. Yeah. It's a lot of effort for other people's opinions. Whether it's that's guys' opinions or girls' opinions. And you don't need to be doing it. And if you don't do it, you won't be buying into the industry of looks. I'm not talking about just good looks and bad looks, but by not buying into that industry, you're creating good in the world. So fair play to the hippies that show off.
And you're right, actually, because it is girls do it for other girls. Like, to be maybe accepted in a friendship group, especially a teenage girl when they're not very secure or sure about themselves, or in your 20s, you will think, well, I'll have more friends if I wear fake tan. At the moment, these are the trends. Wear fake tan, get my lips done, have hair extensions, glue my lashes, get my nails. Then you look like one of those girls that is like more accepted. Whereas if you decide to be the hippie girl, like, fuck that, I'm going to have hairy legs and armpits, you're going to be less likely to be accepted by other girls and probably maybe even have less friends. So it's like more difficult. So then people are like, well, I better buy into the industry and do those things. Yeah, which is sad. And I do think, I went to an all-girls school, and I do think girls do things for other girls.
Oh, 100%.
Maybe even more than for other men. I do think girls do a lot for other girls.
Yeah.
It's not in like a sexual way. It's just some weird a competitive element, maybe.
Yeah, and that is another thing that needs to be wiped out.
Yeah.
I think any sort of competitiveness is generally a bad thing, because it's one having to be better than the other, and the consequence of that is one has to be worse than the other.
Yeah.
So it's like, just don't focus on it. We're all humans. It doesn't matter how, like...
We're beautiful in different ways.
Yeah, like, why do we have to consider perfection at the extremes of all of these things? The most strong, the most best looking, the slimmest. Why does it have to be extremes? Like, actually, perfection is nowhere near any of those extremes.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Well, perfection would be to be completely enlightened and have like no trauma and be...
Well, that's our interpretation of it, but some people would have, oh no, perfection would be to live in the big house with the biggest lips in the world and the biggest arse. And I think that...
but I do think that people think that, but then maybe if they got it, which is the truth of a lot of millionaires, they get it, and maybe they have the really hot wife as well, and then they realise that actually I'm not that happy.
But I guess the sad thing is most people don't get to that point, so they spend their entire life chasing what they deem perfection, and they never realise that it's not perfection.
And that's actually what I wrote, and I read to you last night, which just says, I am missing my own life. I'm so preoccupied with being that perfect weight that I forsake all moments of satisfaction for the future, when the dieting would have paid off. But when I get there, I will be so preoccupied with staying that way that the years will slip by. And I read that in Rich Dad, Poor Dad as well. He said, actually, when rich people get rich, they're not happy because they're so scared of losing the money that they just want more and more, because they're so scared of losing it. And it's the same with if you got to your perfect weight. You'd be so scared of losing that perfect weight. And bodybuilders get that, where it's like, oh, I want to stay this way. And then when you don't, it's like, oh God, like I'm going to have to go on a diet again. So you're becoming so preoccupied with staying a certain way that it takes away from your life.
Yeah. I think that's so true. I think also, going back to the beauty standard, the big lips and stuff like this is something that's certainly not, in my opinion, created for men, because you now have these ridiculous lips which do not, in my opinion, look particularly great, and you're seeing it a lot. And this isn't for men, because most men that I know, even looking at the beauty standard that you see in these glam magazines, not that I look at them too often, but the over airbrushed faces and the too much makeup, the too long eyelash extensions, the too big breast implants, like, they actually don't look good to me. So there's a beauty standard that's being created by the powers that be, and it's something that actually I know a lot of guys that don't find that the perfect look.
But there are guys that date girls who look like that, so they must like them.
Yeah, of course they do, yeah. But maybe they're the people that are focused on the opinions of others more than anyone else. So they see the people in the magazines, they go, because this is what everyone seems to be beautiful, that's now what I want. So it's actually really far from what they really want. They just don't know what they really want. So they're focusing on these girls with these huge tits and these stupid lip implants. And then they're going, oh, I'm going to go for them because other guys will think I'm so cool to be seen with that. So actually they could be the least sure of themselves people. They don't actually like them. They just have no clue what they even want. And I think there's lots of those guys.
Yeah. But unfortunately, because there are guys that are like that, and then there's maybe more women do it. Like, so for me, and I do think, that actually made me think, because I think when I look at girls on Instagram and in life who have had boob jobs, they do get more attention from men. So it kind of isn't true what you're saying, and that makes me want to have it sometimes, because I'm like, oh look, they do so well on social media and they get more attention and all of these things. So then, not that I would now do it, but you get that thought in your head like, maybe I should do it too.
But you'd be getting your attention, I think, from guys that care about the opinions of others. So they're not guys that actually know what they genuinely want. They're the guys that go, what will people in the world be most impressed with me going out with? Oh, it will be that. So you're right, you would be like able to maybe get more guys, but the sort of guys that you're getting are the guys that are more bought into the opinions of other people and ego. So they're not necessarily the sort of guys that you'd want to be dating anyway.
Yeah.
So you can go and get them, but you'd be going for those sorts of guys. You'd be going for the guys that are reading glam magazines and going, oh, that's so cool, girl with massive tits and big lips. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, loads of money and wearing Rolexes. Oh yeah, that's me. That's what I want to be like. They'd be the sort of guys that you'd be going for. All ego. I mean, if that's what you want, that would be the perfect thing to do. But I don't think that those guys know themselves particularly well, generally.
Then maybe you could say there's more ego in the world, because I feel like that's quite a high percentage of people.
Yeah, I think there is. But all you can really do is, like this podcast has hopefully done, open people's eyes to these things, that ego is generally not a good thing. We shouldn't be focusing and prioritising beauty and beauty standards.
Because it creates so many problems.
It creates problems and it doesn't create any fulfilment.
Yeah.
I don't think any of those Barbies with those big lips and those sorts of things, I don't think they sit at home like completely happy with their lives. I think they sit there ridiculously insecure.
Yeah.
So I think, there is too much ego in the world and it is going that way. But also there's people like us and this podcast, and I know hundreds of people that think the same way as us, that think these things are going a bad direction and I don't want to be involved in it.
Yeah.
So,
and also, another bad side effect is what we spoke about earlier, like the disordered eating and women not being happy with their body. So it does create all of those problems as well by buying into it, by looking at those things, by buying those magazines, by looking at those pages, and believing it as well.
So I think some really good advice for any of you guys listening is, guys, men, don't be so focused. Don't put beauty on such a pedestal. Try and shrug off beauty as much as you can, and focus on those underlying, amazing qualities within the women that you associate with. And I think for women, although there is a beauty standard, try not to think about those things. Try and work on those things that, try and work on your integrity and those more important
and also
things.
for women, try and...
understand that you are beautiful.
Yeah, and also knowing, that, when you do pick a flaw in yourself as a woman, maybe question it and say, oh, where is that? Who's told me that's a flaw? That's the first question. To say it was cellulite, who has told you, and stretch marks as well, who has told you that a stretch mark is bad? And if the answer is the beauty standard, then completely ignore it. Because actually, say you were a bit fat and overweight and it was meant you couldn't run for the bus, say, and you were really out of breath, I would say that is, you do need to lose weight. So that's not the beauty standard, that's a health point of view.
Yeah, good point.
So if there is something in you that's unhealthy, then you do need to lose weight and eat better. But don't do it for the stretch marks and the cellulite. So if you're going to go on a diet...
And don't do it for other people.
Yeah, so if you're going on a diet to be more accepted by others, to have less cellulite because you're told it's bad, then don't do that. But if you're going to lose weight because you want to run for the bus and you want to be able to do some squats, that's good.
And with things like having a nose job, I don't think that there's anything that you can say that is going to be useful for yourself.
Or boob job.
Because you getting a nose job, me getting a nose job or making my big nose a bit smaller... it's not going to help me get the bus faster. All it's going to do is change other people's perceptions of me, which is something that I shouldn't be prioritising. It shouldn't matter to me what other people think of me. If it's something like I've got a little bit of extra weight on my gut and I'm unhealthy because of that, that's something that I could and should be doing something about.
Yeah, and also if you're underweight, again, don't gain weight because the beauty standard says you need to have you need to be bigger. Gain weight because you're unhealthy maybe, and you haven't got as much energy in the day and you want to eat more to have more energy. That's a good thing. And actually that's something as well that we spoke about last night, is bulking. Men bulking, overeating, not listening to their body just to look a certain way. And it's crazy that people do that.
Yeah, well, that was a good example of the non-intuitive eating the other way. So I last night was thinking, should I have a late night snack? Because I do want my arms to be a bit bigger. But it's why? All I'm doing there is forcing myself out of the intuitive state, which is I wasn't hungry last night. So I was forcing myself out of it in order to gain some goal, which is superficial and pointless. It's really pointless that I have bigger arms, other than other people will see me and say, oh, cool, he's got quite nice arms. It's fucking pointless. So therefore, I shouldn't be doing those things. I shouldn't be buying into those things. All I'm doing is creating my non-intuitive state And I'd be much like you were with your anorexia, where I then lose the ability to be intuitive. And then I'll get these, I'll get these spiraling diet fads, and I'll lose control of how to eat, essentially, which is terrible. So I skipped the meal at the end, guys. I didn't have it.
but obviously, if you're anorexic and need to gain weight, then it's fine to overeat. And I had to eat when I wasn't full, and that's good because I'm getting to a healthier place. And once I got to the healthy place, you then get intuitively. But if you're someone who is a healthy weight and you don't need to gain weight, but you're gaining weight because you want to be bigger and be more accepted and have bigger muscles, then, and it's not actually practical, then that's bad, because you're consuming, I know men who consume 4,000 calories a day and stuff their faces with food, and it's like completely, for ego reasons, and it's wrong, and it's so bad for your digestion and your body. Yeah,
and there's more knock-on effects for that, like how much unnecessary death and pain are you causing across the world eating more than you need, being gluttonous, one of the 7 deadly sins, by the way. And you're there scoffing down 10 chickens a day and 10 chicken eggs a day. Yeah, and how good, you're causing more and more problems in the world for what? So that other people can think you're cool? Give it up, man.
And have more respect for you just because you've got bigger muscles, But I know men who are big muscles and look great but have absolutely horrendous personalities. So you might impress a girl for 5 minutes, but once she realises what you're like, she won't be around for long. So it's almost pointless.
Yeah.
But so that's another thing to take away, that if you're a woman or a man and you're doing an action because the beauty standard tells you to, it's wrong. But if it's for a health reason, then that's fine. And also, as women who maybe are listening, is to really learn to try and intuitively eat and listen to your body. Because I say to some of my clients who are losing weight or whatever, if they need to, even though I've given them a certain amount to eat, if they need to change it a bit, eat a bit less some days, that's absolutely fine. Eat a bit more some days, that's fine. That's how it should work, rather than trying to force yourself, when you're ill, for example. But I think that's really important. And also, if you're on social media, to try not to buy, if you're following these pages where they slate celebrities or Photoshop things, and don't support those kind of things.
Yeah, don't buy into it.
And if you can, try not to support things like OnlyFans and that sort of stuff, because it's not great for the world.
Yeah, and any of your companies where you're struggling to make money and you think you could, start using these dark practices, think, is this long-term good for humanity? It might be good for you short-term, and we're very selfish when we think about ourselves in the short term and having riches and wealth. But think about the good of the world that you live in, and I think that it should be prioritised more highly than it is, a lot more highly.
Yeah, I put a picture up from our South Africa trip in the waterfall, and I had my bum, and I wasn't wearing a bikini top from the back, and it's had nearly the highest likes on my Instagram. And
that's what happens when you buy into that industry.
And but I was going to say, and the responses I got from those pictures and on my stories were a lot of men asking if I had OnlyFans. And it's it would be so easy if I know I could do really well if I set up OnlyFans and did those kind of pictures and sold my body like that. But it's what would that get you apart from money? You're going to also, what if I put on a bit of weight or decide I don't want to take pictures, I'm going to lose all my income, or when I get wrinkly and older and I'm not the beauty standard, as many people are going to buy it, and all those things.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be asking a lot of your insecurities to go into an industry like that, where people are constantly looking at critiquing your body, because you'd be tied straight in to looking a certain way.
I was a model for 6 years. My whole career was based on that.
So I think anyone getting into those sorts of jobs is just a bad thing. Any job that is involved with you looking a particular way is not a good thing, because you're always going to be tied to that insecurity of looks.
And this actually was written in 2013. This was when I was a model. I didn't quit the modelling industry to 2016. So this was a point where I was stuck in 6 years of being accepted for how you look.
Yeah, I mean, probably the worst industry for these sorts of things. The worst industry for anorexia, the worst industry for body dysmorphia, the worst one for fad diets, I imagine.
And the pressure as well to look a certain way.
Yeah, loads of expectation, loads of other people's opinions actually having a physical effect on your income as well, which is just not an industry
and
to
that's
be involved
why
in.
That was the way I left, was they told me that you're not going to get any work if you don't lose weight, even though I was underweight.
It's awful.
And it's okay, so my job is dependent on that, and if I don't lose weight, then I'm not going to work. And luckily that was the point I quit. But yeah.
Well, I think that's about it.
Yeah, that's a long podcast.
Great conversation.
Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed listening, and if you did enjoy it, share it with your friends, family, drop us a like and subscribe.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you next podcast.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.